What if I didn't survive? When I was 11, my dad and I got into a car accident. The car lost control, flew off the road, and rolled over several times. Neither of us was wearing a seatbelt.
But the strangest part wasn't crash itself. The strangest part was how it ended. All I remember is snow hitting my face when the car was rolling over.
And hitting my head, and then nothing. The next thing I remember is waking up in the back seat, like I had just fallen asleep there. My dad was standing outside the car asking, "You okay?" And the weirdest part is, we were both completely fine. No serious injuries, no blood, no broken bones. As far as I remember, I barely even had bruises. My memory of the accident is fragmented, but I remember this feeling that after something like that, we shouldn't have gotten away so easily. Even as a kid, I had this feeling that something about it didn't make sense. How did I even lose consciousness? How did I end up in a backseat? Why were we unharmed after a rollover crash without seatbelts? And the older I got, the more I kept coming back to those questions. Of course, there are completely rational explanations for things like this. People do survive horrific crashes sometimes. But when I started reading about the typical outcomes of rollover accidents, it genuinely started to unsettle me. Rollover crashes are considered one of the most dangerous types of car accidents, especially when people aren't wearing seatbelts. In rollover accidents, people often suffer severe head injuries, spinal injuries, internal bleeding, or they get thrown out of the vehicle entirely. And the risk of serious injury or death increases dramatically when seatbelts aren't used. That's why, when I think about that crash now, it's hard for me to see it as something ordinary. I think that's when I first started having this strange feeling that the crash could have ended differently, and maybe somewhere it did. Years later, I learned about the many worlds interpretation in quantum physics. The idea that different possible outcomes might exist simultaneously as separate branches of reality. I'm not a physicist, and I'm not trying to prove that this is true, but I'm fascinated by the possibility itself. Later, I came across another idea: quantum immortality. The idea is that consciousness always continues in the version of reality where it survives. And when I first read about it, it scared me. Because I started thinking about that accident differently, about the possibility that in some versions of reality, I didn't survive that day. And for a long time, that thought felt horrifying. But then something strange happened. It became easier for me to think about death. Not in a depressing way, more like death stopped feeling distant. Like it wasn't just one specific moment waiting somewhere in the future, but something that always exists quietly beside us. And maybe we don't even realize how fragile our reality really is. How easily everything could have been different. I don't know what actually happened in that crash, and I don't think I ever will. Most likely, we were just unbelievably lucky, but that feeling of strangeness never really went away. Sometimes I don't think about whether other versions of me exist. I think about why this version was the one that kept living. I'm curious if any of you have ever had a moment that changed the way you see life. If you want to, you can tell me about it in the comments. And if you like these kinds of atmospheric reflections, you can subscribe.